It's Pikachu!
Bouncy.
Clowns in gaming. Pokémon.
Hello there!
As a huge Pokemon nerd, it wouldn't be a Bouncy channel if I didn't have two of my favorite interests here, clowns and Pokemon. Throughout the Pokemon franchise, whether it be on TV, in the games themselves, or in the manga, there are many different representations of clowns. Many trainer classes can be classified as clowns. For instance, we have the Juggler class, first appearing in Gen 1. These battles with them usually consisted of the trainer that used spherical Pokemon like Voltorb and juggled them. In Gen 2, we see the trainer class Fire Breather that has a clown-like striped costume with a Pokeball at the top of their cap. But this trainer class was changed to look like Magmar in Heart Gold and Soul Silver. You can find the Fire Breather class in the Pokemon anime and in the manga. Next we have the Clown class appearing in Gen 4, where you mostly find them all over Jubilife City. This clown class is always depicted as men in orange-themed clown suits, and they usually have circus-themed Pokemon like Mr.Mime or Mime Jr. You can find these clowns in the anime, and in the manga, Diamond, the protagonist, actually dresses up as one to advertise Poketch. From a clowning perspective, I always love looking at different clown designs and finding their origins. For instance, the clown trainer class has a hat and outfit more reminiscent of a Harlequin, but this nose and makeup are also classic of the Auguste clown. It's a really interesting combination of Harlequin and Auguste. Speaking of Harlequin, there is in fact a Harlequin trainer class in Gen 5, where they are known to use Pokemon that can benefit from Trick Room. These Harlequins are similar to the clown trainer class, and they do make a brief appearance in the Pokemon Adventures manga. In Pokemon Season 2, Episode 9, it's Mr. Mime time, in which it centers around a Pokemon circus. Ash dresses as Mr. Mime, and there is a ringmaster named Stella who does later appear as a clown. Although I won't go into detail summarizing every episode and movie appearance, I did want to briefly explain this episode just because how funny and random that it all is. The episode starts off with Ash, Brock, and Misty on their way to Pallet Town. They encounter a random Mr. Mime, and when they go about trying to catch it, they meet a woman named Stella who asks if she can catch it instead. Although the Mr. Mime gets away, Ash and the gang find out that Stella is this ringmaster who has basically trained her Mr. Mime so hard, he has decided to quit her circus and eat snacks all day. So her bright idea for getting her Mr. Mime to work again is to just catch another separate Mr. Mime to replace him and make him jealous, which is low-key kinda wild. Anyways, Brock says he'll help Stella catch a Mr. Mime, but instead of catching one, he just dresses up Ash as Mr. Mime instead. In the meantime, we find out Team Rocket is being tasked once again to find more rare Pokemon by their boss, but then it just briefly shows us that their boss is like, actually, I have the rarest Pokemon ever, and it just shows us that he's got Mewtwo. Like, okay. So while Team Rocket is heading out, Ash is learning Mr. Mime's circus act, which is apparently low-key abusive and crazy because Stella just takes out a giant whip and starts whipping Ash and training him way too hard. And everyone's like, whoa, Stella, I think that's why your Mr. Mime quit in the first place. Ash ends up learning the circus routine, and the circus is going great and they're performing until Team Rocket crashes the circus and steals Mr. Mime. Not realizing that it's not Mr. Mime, it's just Ash inside a costume. Also, at one point, Meowth shoots out of a cannon and says, hold on to your cotton candy, kid. So Ash escapes Team Rocket because he shows them he's not a real Mr. Mime, and they're like, dang, Ash freaking ruined our plans again.
Gosh!
And Ash decides to go back home. On Ash's way back home, his mother finds the wild Mr. Mime from the beginning and he shows up at her door. But because she knows that Ash is in a Mr. Mime costume and he's missing, she thinks that this is just Ash in a Mr. Mime costume, so she feeds him curry. So Ash shows up at home and he's like, Mom, that's not me, that's just a real Mr. Mime. And yeah, that's how you get the origin of Ash's mom having a Mr. Mime, and that theory that we're not going to talk about. While all this is going down, Team Rocket decides to escalate from 1 to 100 and brings giant military tanks to the circus in order to find Mr. Mime. And basically, Mr. Mime and the Mr. Mime that's now Ash's moms team up and just build a giant wall around their tanks, and that's how they're defeated. And at the end, Stella apologizes to her Mr. Mime for basically being abusive towards him, and the episode ends by saying, "It looks like Mr. Mime is learning what Ash has known for a very long time. There's no place like home." So yeah, again, that theory. In the 2003 animated movie, Jirachi Wishmaker, we see many different Pokemon characters as clowns, from Ash to Brock and even Team Rocket. In the 10th episode of Diamond and Pearl called Not on My Watch, we see Team Rocket disguised as clowns in Jubilife City, handing out rigged Poketches. In Pokemon Season 25, Episode 8, called Out of Their Elements, Pikachu is dressed as a clown, where Ash and others are all dressed as circus performers and use circus-like Pokemon. Some have pointed out that the Ringmaster costume worn by Ash in the episode is a slight jab at PETA, who made a Pokemon Flash game and got sued by Nintendo. There is a popular image of Pikachu in a clown costume, but did you know that it actually comes from the movie Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew? He's even on the cover in the same costume. First introduced in Gen 7, Blacephalon is an Ultra Beast alien Pokemon that you encounter in space. Its limbs and body are reminiscent of birthday candles. While its typing is Fire Ghost, the fire typing comes into play here with the idea that it looks like a candle, sparkler, or even firecracker. It has a big circle-shaped head full of dots and star-like eyes on each side of its head, which change colors with its mood. It has been speculated that its head design is based on the actual clown-faced nebula, which does fit perfectly with the fact that Blacephalon is from outer space. Visually, its colors and collar and pom-pom-shaped orbs seem to be inspired by a classic birthday clown, but in its game data, it's written that it slithers toward people and then explodes its own head. It's also known to drain people of vitality, linking it closer to the evil clown trope like Pennywise, someone who literally is intergalactic and feasts on fear. Technically though, since it's both an alien and a clown causing mayhem, it quite literally is a killer clown from outer space. You can see Blacephalon in the 78th episode of Pokemon Sun and Moon called Twirling with a Bang, where they attempt to catch it during a fireworks show. Its English name, Blacephalon, is a play on the word blast and encephalon. Encephalon meaning brain, so literally Blacephalon is called Brain Blast. In French, it's called pyrotechnic, so a play on both the words Piero and pyrotechnic. In all of its other language translations, it actually pretty much just translates into head goes boom or head explosion. So all in all, Blacephalon is an evil alien clown with an exploding removable head. Also coming from Gen 7 is the water starter Pokemon Popplio. Although some argue that this Pokemon has nothing clown about it and is instead a reference to places like SeaWorld and Sea Lion Circus acts, this Sea Lion Pokemon has a big pink clown nose and ruffled clown collar. It also blows water balloons, not water bubbles. So there are many clown and circus-like aspects to Popplio intertwined with its connections to performing circus animals. Its nose looks like a clown nose, but it also looks like it's balancing a ball. The clown aspect of Popplio is also confirmed in its French name. And bear with me on this because I don't speak French, but Popplio's name in French is Otaqui, which is a play on the French word for sea lion, otari, and the word harlequin. Whereas most other translations of Popplio's name focus on it being a play on words of seal and ball, or sea lion and ball, this one confirms that it's quite literally a sea lion clown. Popplio's second evolution, Brionne, is also a performing Pokemon that loves to dance and is said to create water balloons in a variety of colors. In the game data, it's also mentioned that Brionne tries hard to get its trainer to smile by performing a cheery dance, which is a very clown-like mindset to have. Its head shape also evolves to have more ponytail-looking ears, which definitely reminds me of a harlequin. When it comes to Popplio's final evolution, Primarina, I don't really count it as a clown, but I would like to say that we see Popplio go from a young clown performer seal into a teenage singer seal whose name sometimes means starlet, and then evolve into its final form, Primarina, a full-blown serious and beautiful performer, more in line with a mermaid or a siren instead of a circus act. So if you really think about it, this Pokemon tells the story of a clown who was finally taken serious as a performer, or you can even interpret it as a circus act that's finally been set free, that's going from something people have laughed at to something people are inspired by. Meowscarada, the final evolution of Sprigatito, is a grass and dark type Pokemon from Gen 9. This Pokemon draws heavy inspiration from jesters, harlequins, magicians, and even Mardi Gras with its mask-like face. Actually, Meowscarada's shiny is even Mardi Gras colors. Its cape even has the same type of design as a fleur-de-lis. The masquerade is another theme of this Pokemon, as seen in its Japanese name, Masquernia. Many of its names in other languages reference its mask. Masks were a large part of Commedia dell'arte, where we see the stock character, the Harlequin. This is the Harlequin that Meowscarada has drawn some inspiration. Meowscarada is often seen in poses, doing magician-like stances, and juggling its flower bombs. It even has a diamond-looking shaped face paint on its mask, a flower collar, and jester-like ribbons. Harlequin and other stock characters are a large part of the umbrella of clowning. Commedia dell'arte heavily influenced clowning today, so Meowscarada does in fact count as a clown in Pokemon. Girder and Conkeldurr. Although the Pokemon evolutionary line of Timber is based on construction workers, carpenters, and craftsmen, in its last two evolutions, Girder and Conkeldurr gain a red nose. However, it's a bit of a toss-up though, since a larger red nose could indicate an older man or even a drunk character. But the red nose is very clown-like, and with that in combination with its muscles, it's also said that it could have been based on circus strongmen. So I felt it would be appropriate to include them in the off chance that you view them that way. They are often recommended or brought up when people are trying to put together circus-themed teams online. And finally, the Pokemon that you probably came here for. Mr. Mime was introduced in Gen 1 and was a Psychic-type Pokemon until Gen 6, where it gained the dual typing of Psychic and Fairy. In German, Mr. Mime is called Pantimos, which comes from the word pantomime, and in Japanese he is called Barrier, from a play on the words of barrier and weird, because he creates barriers through pantomime and is weird. An obvious clown design choice was made with Mr. Mime that not many have mentioned or connected, and that is that his hair is the same shape as the famous Bozo the Clown. You can get a Mr. Mime through an in-game trade in Pokemon Red and Blue named Marcel, after the famous mime Marcel Marceau. In its various entries, it's known to be a skilled mime from birth, slap people who interrupt its miming with its giant hands, practice its miming day and night, gaslight people into believing things that aren't real are actually there with its pantomiming, and have magic fingertips that literally create a force field that hardens the air. It's also written it's adept at conning people, and it's known to slap you with its giant hands if you aren't impressed enough at its miming skills. Pokemon scientists even believe that it evolved to have giant hands to make it better at pantomiming. Mr. Mime has received a lot of haters throughout the years, being called creepy, horrific, terrifying in nature, and too humanoid in magazines and websites. But they can stay haters because Mr. Mime will always be recognized as one of the most loved Pokemon out of the series. There is a regional version of Mr. Mime, Galarian Mr. Mime, that you can find in Galar, who instead of being just great at miming, is also great at tap dancing. According to its data entries, it literally creates ice from its feet that it can skate around on and tap dance around on an ice floor. I would not want Galarian Mr. Mime to cut me off in traffic. Galarian version of Mr. Mime can evolve into Mr. Rime. Mr. Rime bears a striking resemblance to Charlie Chaplin, the silent film star known for his character, the Tramp. Most don't know that Charlie Chaplin himself is considered a clown in his own right and was nominated into the International Clown Hall of Fame in 2001. His shiny is also much less saturated, which can be a slight nod to the silent film era Charlie Chaplin came from. All versions of Mr. Mime are said to be inspired by clowns and jesters. From the nose of Mime Jr. to the jester shoes and shaped feet of Mr. Mime. The designs each have different aspects that were inspired by clowns, Pierrot, and even jesters. Some have also speculated that on top of Mr. Mime being so obviously inspired by mimes and clowns, that it could easily be a Tsukumogami. Tsukumogami come from Japanese folklore and are broadly considered items or artifacts and tools that have reached their 100th birthday and when doing so acquire awareness and become alive. If you take into account this theory, then it would mean that Mr. Mime is actually a ball-jointed clown doll that lived for 100 years and became a spirit on its own. And the Mr. Mime design does in fact have what appears to be ball joints, like you see on popular clown and jester marionettes. So there really could be a chance that Mr. Mime is just a sentient, haunted clown doll. In Gen 6, Mime Jr. was added to the evolutionary line of Mr. Mime as its pre-evolution. According to game data, it mimics and mocks its opponent like a child, and then it just runs away. In German, Mr. Mime is called Pantomime, from pantomime and mimic, which also sounds like a cuter and smaller version of Pantimos, which is what they call Mr. Mime. In Japanese, its name is Manene, a play on the word mane meaning imitate or mimic, and nene meaning Spanish for baby. So it literally means mimicking baby. Some have also pointed out that Mime Jr. looks like an ice cream cone with the red nose being a maraschino cherry. Mime Jr.'s shiny is also reminiscent of the Joker's classic colors. In Mime Jr.'s data entries, much like Mimikyu, both are referred to as mimic Pokemon. Going back to the Pokemon Sun and Moon games, when you first meet Mimikyu, you encounter it in the back of a thrifty Mega Mart in a special abandoned room. On the way to the room, different, cuter Pokemon plushies are moved around in an attempt to scare you. If you think about the idea that Mr. Mime is a Tsukumogami of a clown doll, then imagining Mime Jr. being a small clown doll that nobody wants, found in the back of an abandoned mini-mart that sells other, cuter dolls, it could make sense it mutated into a Mimikyu. So a small, mimicking clown baby doll Pokemon left alone, yearning to be played with and loved just like Pikachu, until it transforms into something else, passing on its fairy typing to become something new. An angry and childishly obsessed, full-blown Pikachu mimic. I got the idea for this theory based on the fact that when Galarian Mr. Mime evolves into Mr. Rime, its true face is on its stomach, much like how Mimikyu's true body and eyes are below its false Pikachu head. Mime Jr. also has very long arms, like Mimikyu. Combining this with Mime Jr. also being the literal mimic Pokemon, I thought I could be onto something. But that's just a theory. Please don't send me actual hate comments about this. I just wanted to have a little fun. I do not actually think Mime Jr. is Mimikyu. I just thought it was like fun, and like please don't do that. Like, there's not any validity to this, thank you. Extra special bonus round! There is a clown plushie from the movie mentioned earlier, Pokemon Lucario and the Mystery of Mew, that is just Clown Pikachu. Unfortunately, this is a rare Pikachu plush and a bit harder to find because of its age, but it is out there. In 2016, there was a Circus Halloween Pikachu that is dressed like a jester and the ghost Pokemon Chandelure. In Pokemon Unite, you can find a Hoopaca costume that's a clown, and you can find a jester costume for Sableye. The Japanese Pokemon Center released a limited edition card sleeve of Blacephalon called Blacephalon's Castle that shows him in a castle-like fairy tale background. Because we actually never see the world Blacephalon comes from in any media, it's very possible this is the only glimpse of it we have. These card sleeves are very rare and were released in 2018 in Japan with a limit of 5 per person, but they sold out in less than 5 minutes. So that wraps up all of the clowns in Pokemon, whether it was TV, games, or the Pokemon themselves. What was your favorite? And did I miss any clowns? Let me know below. Bye!